We've got an excellent show today. I'm really excited about our first guest, so we're going to jump right into it. Kyle Walters, he is the managing director at Atlas Wealth Advisors. So I read the bio on your website. It says the Bearstein Bears actually inspired you to go into financial services. Okay, so no, seriously, how did you choose this career?
So growing up, my mom was an entrepreneur. So I've always kind of been around. I've always been around money, and I've always been around the decisions that are involved with money pretty early. So we talked openly at the kitchen table every night. And growing up, so the Berenstein Bears, a book came out called The Trouble with Money, and it talked about the brother and sister bear basically starting all these businesses. And I was pretty infatuated with it. Read it a few thousand times, and it's always stuck. So the next year, my parents, in order to support my unhealthy obsession, they got me my first financial organizer when I was 6 years old with all these 3 plastic packets for save, spend, and give away. It was great. So I started really early with my allowance of coins, trying to figure out, how much can I spend, how much can I save, how much can I give away, which is pretty neat because that's kind of what I do every day now with clients. Started my first little company when I was in elementary school.
Really? What was your company?
So the first business I started was, it's kind of funny. So I grew up in San Antonio, and I started selling in elementary school cinnamon toothpicks.
Really?
So there was a rule in school that you could not sell candy and you could not eat candy. However, there was a place just outside of San Antonio that sold cinnamon toothpicks, and I could buy them for 25 cents for a quarter, and then I could sell them 2 for a quarter at school, and it circumvented the no candy rule. So I had the market cornered for about 6 months until the halls were littered with toothpicks, and then they squashed my first business. So that's big government, I guess, for you.
We need to drain the swamp.
I know.
That's what we need.
That's right. They drained the swamp quick on me, and that was it. That was all I had. So.
Okay, so no, seriously, when you were young, were you reading the stock pages or the sports section like your buddies or?
Yeah, I was always more interested in finance than I was other stuff. I mean, I remember my mom, she'd be doing her books, and I remember she'd be in her bedroom, and I could see down the hall, and she'd be writing in her ledger and writing all these checks, and I was always kind of infatuated with how that works. Side note, as an adult, writing checks is not terribly exciting. But as a kid, when you don't know what it means, it's kind of fascinating. So I started reading finance really early. I mean, I was reading Benjamin Graham and kind of the founders of value investing when I was probably 13 or 14, which was a little different than what most of my friends were reading, but it was more interesting for me.
Did you find that your mind just processes numbers better? I mean, kind of like Rain Man, or do you process numbers better than others?
With the caveat that it's funny. So in algebra and geometry, I was no savant, right? But as soon as a dollar sign got in front of it, for some reason the way the calculations worked all started to make sense. So that actually helped me with math growing up. Was I put a dollar sign in front of it to see, and it immediately became of interest to me, and then I could do the math much easier. So that was like my math hack growing up, was the dollar sign.
I know your industry sometimes gets a bad name. Talk about your philosophy when you approach your clients.
Yeah, so we're in the financial services industry. We also have a tax planning firm, and I think the financial services industry gets a bad rap, right or wrong, just because there's not really much of a barrier to entry. So you can have really anybody that comes in and says, I'm a wealth manager or I'm a financial advisor, and that doesn't necessarily mean anything anymore. So I spent a lot of the beginning of my career getting advanced designation. So I have probably 7. I have more letters after my name than in my name, which my wife will tell you is because I'm wildly insecure. But I would say it's because I'm committed to excellence for my clients. The truth is probably in the middle. I would love to see some higher standards. That's probably not going to happen. So we just try to figure out when we're meeting with clients, how can we communicate our value, realizing that a lot of this is based on trust. But as we like to say, hey, anytime you're interviewing anybody, trust but verify. So Ronald Reagan can kind of come in handy there.
I love it. Now, are you getting clients after they've been burned by somebody else, or typically are they coming to you for the first time?
Most of our clients have already had some sort of experience with a financial advisor. So most of our clients are mature. They typically already have resources. You usually didn't get there without growing and, making a few mistakes. So a lot of our clients, it's kind of interesting when the markets and financials and economics are doing really well. Our business, our new business, calms down a little bit because everybody thinks that their advisor is great when the market's going great.
Right.
Nobody really, it's Warren Buffett said, rising tide lifts all boats.
Right.
When the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked, right? So down markets, it sounds terrible. Our business actually increases quite a bit just because people start to say, hey, maybe I'm ready for a second opinion. And they talk to our clients who aren't necessarily as impacted because they're structuring and their portfolio is all more in line with their goals, so they're not as worried about it.
If somebody's listening to this program, what can they expect when they come to you? I mean, you really are putting their interests before your own.
Yeah, so the biggest thing that we talk about is we like to make it easy. We say typically for people to be financially successful, you need three things. You need a map, you need a plan, and you need a guide. And then we break it and we spend some time talking about each. So when we talk about you need a map, I can't call American Airlines and book a flight without 2 airport codes. Right, so I need to know really where I am now and where I want to go. And that sounds really basic, but we have clients come in all the time that don't understand everything about the current situation, and they sure don't understand and have a clear picture of where they want to go. And then it's saying, okay, now once we know the terrain, once we've kind of built a map out, we got to figure out a plan. So a prioritized action plan that says, what are the most important things that you can do now that are going to have the biggest impact to get you where you want to go? And then it's a guide. So that's figuring out if you want this to be a self-guided tour. That's great. We can kind of show you how to do that, realizing that, the most expensive thing I ever got was free. So, but good luck, right? We can see if it makes sense for us to be the guide or somebody else or whatever it might be. So the biggest thing that we talk about is whether you go into a physician's office or any sort of professional, diagnosis is really important. So I don't go into my cardiologist and just start naming the prescriptions I want. Right? I go in and, I tell him what's wrong with me, and then he says, okay, I need family history, I need all these different things. So he's going through the diagnosis process before he prescribes. So no doctor would prescribe before diagnosing. He's no longer a doctor, now he's a drug dealer. Right. So we try to keep we try to say, hey, we're financial physicians, and how do we act like one?
Wow. Kyle, this segment has gone by too quickly. We have to have you back on again. Kyle, thank you for joining the Jeff Kelly Show. When we come back, if you think you have a book in you, there's a woman who will inspire you. That's next on the Jeff Kelly Show.